Hello and welcome to Beyond Reproach. This is Tux Lerzel.
This is Stephanie Domingo.
This is the Minisode today. And as you know, we do not have no format because we don't do that no mo.
Nope.
We come to you from Bushwick, Brooklyn, where we record on land belonging to the Lenape Nation, a nation that is one of many still very much out here doing its thing, and we'd like to acknowledge that.
Hell yeah.
We do be drankin' and we do be swearing, so cheers.
Always. Clink.
Fucking cheers.
Yes. Motherfucking cheers.
So what are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about National Hispanic Heritage Month, the month that we are currently in. It is an official celebration of Americans whose heritage can be traced back to Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central and South America. So it's big. It's very, very diverse. I, just as shorthand, will be referring to them as Latin American countries.
Okay.
I know that term is problematic, which I will, I guess, talk about now. There's a lot of, language evolves. The word Hispanic is a term that was coined by the U.S. government.
I did not know that.
Yes, to identify Spanish-speaking people coming from south of Mexico. That was their definition. It's just like, you all down there, we're going to call you Hispanic. As such, many people reject this term for a lot of different reasons. I reject any term that comes from the U.S. government to define a whole group of people. Yes. Bad track record, no thank you. But the term Hispanic especially is problematic because Spanish-speaking people from these really diverse regions come from a variety of cultural and racial backgrounds. The term Hispanic or even Latino ignores the lived experience of indigenous and Black people in those regions. And also, not all those peoples from the countries that I mentioned speak Spanish.
Yeah, Brazil is Portuguese, par exemple.
Thank you, par exemple. But there are a lot of people who speak their native indigenous languages in those regions, post-colonialization.
Sure,
So they're not included in this term Hispanic or even Latino. The term Latinx is a recent attempt to ungender the term Latino. And it's the one that I use more frequently. It seems like it's the best option.
Sure, yeah.
I think under the umbrella of Latin American is the term Chicano, which is even more specific. It refers to Mexican Americans from like southern parts of California and like parts of Texas.
Yeah.
It's very political. People self-identify as that in kind of like a revolutionary, like Cesar Chavez kind of way.
Russell knows a lot about Chicano culture being from Southern California, and he like always wanted to hang out with the Chicano people when he was living there.
He wants to be Selina.
Yes,
Go on.
Exactly. He wanted to be Selina. The end of story.
He wanted a quinceanera.
Yes. I think when he turned 30, he threw himself a quinceanera times 2.
Yes. And you have that really amazing cookbook.
Yeah, I have a cookbook called Chicano Eats that's by this really incredible food blogger he's a gay Chicano living in Southern California. He is incredible. His photography is so beautiful.
It is stunning.
Yeah.
Tux was telling me before we started recording, and I was just like paging through, like salivating with my mouth and eyes.
Yes. His Instagram is incredible.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, and the food, I've made a few of the recipes. Everything is amazing. There's a recipe called Choco Flan. That's like it's like a
chocolate and flan.
It's sort of like chocolate cake and flan in the same recipe, and you bake it in a bundt pan, and it sort of separates into 2 different layers. So it's like flan on top and chocolate cake on the bottom. And
it stays like solid enough for you to...
Yeah, it's so good.
Wow.
Yeah. Flan is a little bit firmer than a traditional flan.
Okay.
So it's like sliceable, but it's so good.
Wow. That sounds like a treat.
Yeah.
I will be looking at that recipe later. So the term Latinx, it still pays like deference to Eurocentric ideology, and it erases the history of indigenous and Black people once again. And even though it's supposed to catch them too, it doesn't really, often their stories aren't mentioned.
Sure. So why would we do that?
Yeah. It still centers the language of the colonizer as a basis for identity. So it's complicated. It's very complicated. But ultimately, I think it's really beautiful because it involves an identity. Therefore, people are allowed to identify however feels true and right for them.
Sure, of course.
Whether it's Latino, Latina, Hispanic, Spanish, some people call themselves Spanish, Chicano, Latinx, etc. Do you, boo?
Yeah.
Live your life. So I educated myself doing this research because I'm like, oh, Latinx is like the best term ever. And then I was reading articles. I'm like, oh, shit. It too has problems.
Yeah. When I first heard the term Latinx, I didn't think about the fact that it was like a gender sort of negation. Gender neutral thing. So you're not saying Latina or Latino.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, in my head, I thought it was queer Latin people.
Oh.
I don't know why that was what occurred to me when I saw Latinx, which is incorrect.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. I never would have.
I have no idea why that's where my head went.
Okay.
But yeah.
But you learn. I mean, it does include them, but that's not. Yeah.
That's what I thought it was exclusively, and I don't know why that's where my head went.
That's amazing. So I used articles in my research from Indian Country Today and the Highland Support Project, both of which are indigenous publications. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of making the case for like, actually, you're all like indigenous, either just indigenous or like mixed indigenous heritage.
Yes.
And I'm just like, duh, like my dumb, like colonized mind, like I'm like, wait, what? But obviously. So let's get into the history of Hispanic Heritage Month. Observance started in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson. Oh. He was the first one to recognize this group of people. And it was expanded to a month by President Ronnie Reagan.
Oh, my stars.
In 1988.
What a guy.
Right?
What a mensch.
The guy responsible for completely destabilizing most of these countries is the one celebrating them.
He's like, if I give you a month, will you stop coming here?
Oh my God. Fuck him. Whatever. This Heritage Month is pretty special for a number of reasons because, I mean, it's so fucking diverse, but it's observed from September 15th to October 15th, which is, I think, pretty fly. It's the only Heritage Month that's not the first.
Yeah. And not just 1 month, it spans 2 months.
Yeah, it spans 2 months.
Huh.
Because the 15th is a significant date because many Latin American countries fought for and won their independence on September 15th.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like, I think it's really cool. So September 15th is the anniversary of independence for Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. Mexico celebrates their independence on the 16th of September. And Chile is on September 18th.
Wow.
So it's kind of like to catch all, in all different years, too.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's like to catch all of them.
What's going on in September in these countries?
I know. I guess it's just like, Honduras did it last September.
Yeah,
it's our time.
Let's do it.
Let's go, Guatemalans.
Me too.
Yes. It's kind of like the Arab Spring, I think. Like, it just inspires other countries to, seize power from these fucking Spaniards.
Yeah. So because it's south of the equator, so is that the spring for them too?
Oh. Wow, you just blew my mind. Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Vanessa.
And we're a Tap on the Wrist podcast.
2 years ago, we started this podcast as a way to share our combined love of history and alcohol with a little sprinkle of true crime. Now in our 4th season, we've become an anthology podcast sharing alcohol-related history with a multitude of topics.
Whether you've listened to all of our episodes or are just hearing about us for the first time, we can't wait to share our newest stories with you. This season, we're playing Spin the Bottle each week to determine our research topic for the next week. Everything is on the table, and we're excited to bring it to you.
Find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, and make sure to add us on social media, at A Tap on the Wrist. We're so glad you found us.
Grab a drink and come along for the ride.
Cheers!
So I just want to end this by talking about a few iconic Hispanic, Latinx, indigenous artists who I stan, and I think you should stan too. You probably already know them. My taste, as I was like putting together a list of my favorites, I think are pretty basic, but I still love these people. So the first person on my list is Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Yes.
He was a visual artist born and raised in Brooklyn to Puerto Rican and Haitian parents. He was part of SAMO. Did you ever watch that documentary Radiant Child?
No.
Oh, it's so good. So there was this graffiti group, like it was two artists that were going around the Lower East Side in the 70s, like tagging up buildings and with like really political statements.
Cool.
Yeah. It was back when, hip hop culture was kind of still finding its footing.
Yeah.
And there was just culture happening in the Lower East Side as opposed to just Chase Banks. And,
What?
It was where art was happening.
Poor Dwayne Reed. How did they survive?
I know. It's a sad day when no one's thinking about Dwayne Reed. So it was a hotbed of culture, not because of Basquiat, but he was part of the movement in that time. And his paintings only really became popular after he died.
Okay.
He died. He's part of the 27 Club. He died of a heroin overdose. Yeah, but his paintings focused on the Black experience, exploring themes of wealth inequity and like poverty. And yeah, he was kind of giving his like visual hot takes via art. He's buried at Greenwood in Brooklyn. Cool. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he is first on my list. Frida Kahlo. I think everyone knows who Frida Kahlo is, but I don't know if people really, really know about her. She was born in Mexico City, and she was very revolutionary in Mexican politics at the time and just the art world in Mexico. Her art talked about her mental and physical disabilities. Not many people know that she was disabled. She got polio as a child and had pain her whole life because of it. Her art talks about her gender expression, her sexuality, her relationships. She was married to the worst man.
Yes.
As beautiful, talented, just brilliant women always attract the worst ain't shit men, like trying to destroy them. She had Diego Rivera fucking her little sister, literally, just doing awful things. But she divorced him, and she was heavily into politics. And there is some controversy around her artwork. People say that she appropriated like Mexican folk art that wasn't really hers to appropriate. However, her mother was, I might be butchering this term, but it was called mestizo.
Okay.
Which is Mexican of mixed Spanish and indigenous heritage.
Okay.
So her work borrowed very heavily from her mother's upbringing.
That's
the folk icon. I know. I'm like, that's
fair.
fine.
Yeah.
But then again, who am I? I am not part of the community, despite my last name. People are like, "Are you Spanish?" I'm like, the international slave trade.
Yeah.
I'm technically, I guess, Portuguese, Brazilian. My great grandmother lived in Rio. Who even fucking knows? But yeah, I'm not part. I don't identify as part of the Latinx community. But there are people who are upset at her art.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's their right to.
Sure. Yeah.
Rupert Garcia. Do you know who Rupert Garcia is? Oh, I love him. He is a Chicano artist. He was born and raised in California. He was an activist. He taught art at San Jose State University. He's still alive. He's 80 years old. He's since retired, I guess, a long time ago. But he is one of my favorite examples of an artist, like a fine artist. Like he was, painting and like doing his thing in the art world. But when the civil rights movement got really big, and he was living in San Francisco at the time, he started hanging out with the Black Panthers, and he stopped doing his art to make posters for them.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah. So one of his most famous silkscreens is of Frida Kahlo, but his second most famous is of Angela Davis.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a poster demanding her release as a political prisoner.
Cool.
It's amazing. It's going to be in the show notes. I'm obsessed. So his whole art style was just ripped by Shepard Fairey.
No comment.
Okay. And last but not least, I think most people probably or are aware of this icon, Sylvia Rivera. She is iconic, pioneering transgender activist, revolutionary. She was born in New York City to Puerto Rican and Venezuelan parents.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so she was historic for being at Stonewall and for just being part of the gay liberation movement. Her and Marsha P. Johnson created an organization called STAR, Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. And their mission was to support queer youth and sex workers in New York City. Yeah. She's like the mother of the movement, they call her. So yeah, get into these people if you aren't already. If you have other people that I should know, if you have less basic faves, definitely reach out. Let me know. I would love to share some of their artwork this month.
Just because these people are well known doesn't mean they're basic.
I know.
Sylvia Rivera is
You're right.
basic.
I'm just like, I'm not dropping knowledge on anyone, but I think these people deserve all of their roses.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me know. Send me a message.
That was great.
That's kind of it.
I feel so edumacated.
I hate you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. This is going to come out, I think this is the last week of the month. Their celebrations month, because it ends October 15th.
So you still got a few days to celebrate and educate yourself on...
Yeah, I will be posting Latinx things. Thanks. We'll be all over the feed. Check it out.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you guys so much for listening to Beyond Reproach. This has been Tux Lurzel.
And Stephanie Domingo.
Thank you to Tim Clough, our editor, sound engineer, and podfather. We could not. We will not.
No.
We can't. What is it? Never mind.
I can't, I don't, I shan't, I won't.
There we go.
Yes.
We got there.
Eventually it'll flow off the tongue.
Yes.
Because we're going to make this phrase iconic.
I just need to get a t-shirt printed, and then I will always remember it because it will be emblazoned on my body. All right. That's enough of that.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
That's enough
Bye.
Of that. Beyond Reproach is proudly recorded in Bushwick, Brooklyn, on land belonging to the Lenape Nation. Please note we are not historians. We are just a couple of drunks who never shut up and love history. Full list of all source information can be found in the show notes on our website. Please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Written reviews are especially important. If you like us, please do one of two things. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or send this episode to a friend, family member, or someone who you think would be into it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram because we post our cocktail recipes the Thursday before each full episode. Please drink along with us if you are not driving. We also have a shop on beyondreproachpod.com. Get your merch, brand yourselves. We have exclusive content on Patreon where you can directly support the production of our show.